Are we live again?
We are live again.
Hooray.
Sorry, everyone. My computer overheated, so we lost everything. But we're back. And everyone's figuring out how to get back on.
We are, and I've put the live bit back on the page it was on, and that's all cool. So we're cool. We're cool. I keep on getting a message from Joseph saying, "Call from Joseph." It's like, dude.
It's calling the wrong guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder what's going on there. I've got like 3 calls going on. Okay, let me just get this back up on the screen. So.
Should I get a cool picture?
Yeah. Get your cool
everyone
picture.
Can see how cool I am.
Yeah, man. My wife's now listening in as well.
Oh, so. Hi, Kat.
Hello. Why did you know that?
Because I watch your show.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, I do.
Because I'm a stalker.
Nice. Crazy atheist.
So what's happening? Who's trying to get David?
I said, can you hear him?
No.
I can't. It's in the other room. No, he's not showing up on the chat yet. I think he seems to be trying to add another call. He seems to be trying to make a new call. It might be
because I don't think I'm a friend with him on Hangouts. That might be it.
We're not friends.
We're not friends.
Not even enemies.
It's my backing. Because his tablet sucks.
What's he got?
An Android tablet.
So I've got an iPad and a Nexus, and both of them are pretty good.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect reason as to why I can't wait for this damn computer to get here.
Hey, he has an iPad.
Fuck iPads.
I've got both. I've got an iPad and a Nexus 7, so yeah.
Oh.
My wife's got 2 iPads.
You know what? Bring that Nexus 7 over here so I can borrow it permanently.
So, we should get back into this. Okay, I think the thing with the whole abortion thing was, I think we were getting a bit bogged down in that because ultimately...
Are we broadcasting yet?
Yeah.
We're
live. I think the point that we were trying to make was that abortion is one of those things where people seek to impose their will on others, and that's why we're atheists, because we feel that it's not right for people to impose their will. If that makes sense.
No, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily agree with it, but...
Yeah, we don't agree with it, but we do. No, we understand where you're coming from.
But what don't you agree with?
Because
I mean, I understand that you're talking about that you're against us because from your perspective, it seems like we're imposing our will on others, and we're imposing on the woman's right to choose. But from our perspective, like you're ignoring. You're ignoring the rights of the child.
I'm not. The thing is, I'm not making any comment at all on my personal feelings about the right of the child. I'm just saying that it's one of these things you have to accept. Yeah. It's like free speech. If you accept free speech, you have to accept that some people are going to say things you don't like. If you accept liberty for everybody, you have to accept that some people are going to do some things you don't agree with. And it's down to your own conscience whether you do those things or not yourself. It's not anybody's place to impose those opinions on other people. So, and as soon as people start to make it their job to impose those opinions, then that's when it needs to be stopped.
Do you personally believe that the woman's choice supersedes the baby's right?
I don't have an opinion either way because I don't have a womb.
Well, can I ask you a question if you don't mind?
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
If you so how would you justify? I know the laws in your country are a little bit different, but how would you justify a law then? I mean, to a criminal, it should be his right to commit the act that he wants to commit. So where do we? Is it because as a society, as a group, each society or subsect of society decides what's right and wrong?
Now we're getting into the moral conversation.
I think you're going to have to reword your question because I don't quite understand what you're actually trying to say.
Like he's saying,
are you saying it should be all right for people to kill people?
And I think we discussed this in the last video too. I say that we all individually decide what is moral for each other.
Yeah, I mean you live by the golden rule as much as you can.
Well, of course, yeah, but according to an atheistic worldview, why is the golden rule why does that matter?
There is no atheist worldview.
Yes, there
We would
is.
disagree.
No, there's not. Okay, atheism is the lack of a belief in a God. How is that a worldview aside from that one thing?
Now we're getting into the definition. Like atheism is the denial that God exists.
No, I just don't accept the existence of any gods. It doesn't make it a worldview. I mean, I just don't believe one thing.
Everybody has a worldview.
But
Everybody
atheism does not.
You still have a worldview.
Yes, but atheism does not. Me and Alex have different worldviews, I'm sure. We probably disagree on several things.
Everybody has a script they go by.
Yes.
Regardless of atheism might not have the same script. You might have a different script than another, but you still have a script.
Okay, what's the script aside from not believing that God exists? Give me the rest of the script, because I'm not aware of it as an atheist.
We're not saying you have an objective script. We're just saying that you individually will have one. I mean, you have your own worldview.
But it's not atheism. It's my own script. That's why I don't argue necessarily for atheism. I argue for my own position. I can argue my own position. I can argue for everyone else. Christians
but the core of your position is atheism.
It's not the core of my position. My position is rationality.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I wouldn't.
In our last debate, I described the natural world as what exists. Now, given that definition, what is wrong with that?
Well, I guess what we're saying is you define the natural world as what exists.
Yes.
But back to my question here is, in your worldview, let me approach it this way. In your worldview, do you have objective standards, or are your standards subjective to on everything?
They're like everybody else's. They're subjective.
So, if they're subjective, then what would make your morals or your worldview different than Charles Manson, who decided what he did was correct?
Because we have different subjective worldviews.
Here's an analogy for you guys to understand better where we're coming from. I think I gave this analogy in the last week about, imagine we have two fundamentally different maps of Africa, and we wanted to figure out which map was the most correct one. And in order for us to figure out which map was, we had to actually look at a real objective standard for Africa, i.e. the continent itself. But if the continent does not exist at all, then both the maps are irrelevant.
And do you know what that's called?
The atheistic worldview denies that there's an objective standard for morality.
Do you know what that's called?
Your opinion on morality is different than my opinion on morality.
Do you know what it's called? No, what it's called when you have two arguments over two maps of what Africa is supposed to be. To check those, it's called testing it.
Yeah, so I just said, but your worldview denies that there's an objective standard. So your idea of morality is irrelevant, and my idea of morality is irrelevant.
No, it's relevant to me. It might not be relevant to you. That's why we have criminals.
Okay, so if it's all subjective, why would you care if I went out and shot 15 people right now?
You're not understanding. My morality is coming from me. That's why I would care. My morality. I have a personal morality.
Okay, so but your worldview is making morality arbitrary.
We understand. Yes, we understand why you would care. We understand why you would care, but
let me simplify this for you. The reason that people care is because we don't want things to harm us in the most cases unless we're psychotic, and because we don't want. Because do you want to be hurt?
I might not want to be hurt, but
do you actively seek pain? If you let me finish what I was saying. I was saying that in most cases
can I explain something to you afterwards?
Go on. I was going to say.
Afterwards, after you're done, can I explain something to you?
Yeah. What I was going to say is that in most cases we don't want to be hurt, and the people who do seek out being hurt are either psychotic or people who gain some pleasure from it because of just the way their brain is wired. But the majority of people don't want to be hurt, and we recognise that we don't want our loved ones to be hurt, and we recognise that life is easier as being a group species that lives in groups. We recognise it is far easier to not hurt your neighbours. Let's put it this way. You've got two separate groups of people. If you have a group of people who think that it's great to rape, steal and murder, and another group that doesn't think it's great to rape, steal and murder, which group is the one that's going to survive, assuming they're not running into each other?
But why do we want to survive?
What's that?
Why would we want to survive?
Why would you not want to survive?
Because people who do not want to survive do not survive. Obviously, the people who exist are those who want to survive. People who go and they kill themselves at an early age aren't going to reproduce. So genetically, we are more predisposed to survival and that's why we survived. We
Well, yeah, I understand that. What I wanted to go here is kind of where Alex touched on. I happen to be a psychology major. So what would make someone who doesn't want to experience pain or doesn't want to survive different than a masochist or a sadomasochist or something like that? I mean, in their opinion or their morality or whatever you want to use to define it, like that their set of morals is subjective to them. So
one of them has a disease.
What was that?
One of them has a disease.
I don't know if I would classify
a masochist. I would.
I mean, I would decide as a
okay.
But why would I mean, maybe, hey, some people might want to be spanked. That's okay, but I mean, if you want someone to like shoot you with a gun, you got an issue.
Well, I would agree, but I wouldn't call it a disease, though.
I would if you want to get shot with a gun.
Okay, but by your worldview, what's wrong with that, though?
It's subjective to me. You don't understand it. You don't like the fact that we all have different opinions. Christians like to pretend like they all have the same opinions. They don't.
Like I just said, everybody has a worldview. Everybody has a script to go by.
Yes.
So I'm asking you, based on your worldview, what's wrong with Joe Blow down the street liking?
Because I say it's wrong. Based on my worldview, it's because I say it's wrong.
But
your worldview is making morality arbitrary.
No, the fact that I'm not the only one. We have a society of people who agree. That's why we pass laws.
So what you're saying is that the majority of people determines what's right and wrong. Then.
No, what's deemed right and wrong.
Ultimately, in the end,
it's you. You can't follow a morality you don't believe in. Like I said with the raping babies, you can't rape babies even if society says it's right. If you personally take it as wrong.
What if there was a society that did say it's right?
They wouldn't survive very long.
No.
I don't know about that. I mean,
if there was a society that said that it's okay to rape babies,
and they start raping them,
what like that means for that society? By your logic, that means for that society, raping babies is right.
No. Yeah, they would rape all their babies to death. There would be no more people.
I've never.
Okay,
I've
but
never heard of it.
That's not a here and there. We're talking based on your own logic. You're saying that for that society, raping babies would be right.
All right. So where do you think morality comes from?
It's objective. It comes from God.
Where does it come from?
Yeah, it's God's nature.
Wait. All right. So there was an issue last time when we were talking.
Asking us where morality comes from is like asking us where does God come from.
Well, I know that you went through this in the last one, and also I've got a quick question. My wife's right here, and she's asking if she wants to, is she able to just hop in at any point?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, she
excellent. Can. Okay.
Yeah, as long as you don't mind, guys.
Oh, I don't mind.
Okay, but the point what I wanted to say about this issue of where morality comes from, it's something you guys got very kind of caught up in on the last one, and I really wanted to ask David a very kind of straightforward question. And I know this is exactly the same question that Fsx asked in the last one.
Okay.
Does morality, is it an invention of God, or is it part of the nature, the inherent nature of God?
We're saying morality is God.
That's not answering the question. I want you to give me a straight answer. Because saying it is God, that is a nonsensical answer.
You're asking us to separate morality and God, and I'm telling you, according to Christian theism, we cannot do that.
So by saying that morality is God, you're saying it's part of his nature?
We're saying that it is him.
Like, are you...
Like, God says something is good because he is good.
That's like...
How do you know that God's good?
Well, look, that's like asking if you are a part of your nature or are you you? Are you a part of your own nature or are you you?
No, but things that if I was all powerful, then I would have the control over everything. By definition, I would be all powerful, so I would be able to decide what my nature is. Surely.
Yeah, like the biblical definition of all powerful is not the same as what all powerful according to Christian theism does not mean God is able to do everything and anything he wants.
Oh right, so he's not all powerful.
All powerful means, according to the biblical definition, like. God, like there are certain things that God cannot do. Like God cannot lie.
So God is not omnipotent.
He is.
The way I defined this when I was coming out of Christianity is that God can do anything that's logically possible. And your argument's not going to work any better using that definition.
Yeah, he could do anything within his nature to do.
So he can't lie.
He can't lie. He can't do anything that goes against
he does lie.
Yeah, he does.
No, he doesn't.
He sends lying spirits to deceive people.
Because that's what they called upon themselves.
So?
But you're saying that God is sovereign and he can't, there's nothing... Can anything happen without it being God's will?
No, God predestines all things to come to pass in his sovereign will.
Oh,
again,
yes,
like we got
moral will thing.
There's his sovereign will, his moral will.
Could you tell me where in the Bible the sovereign versus moral will
is? The best example of his sovereign will versus and his moral will is Jesus on the cross. Like, according to God's moral will, murder is wrong. Yet, according to his sovereign will, Jesus had to sacrifice himself for our...
I think you misheard. That's not the question I asked you. I asked you to tell me where in the Bible is sovereign will versus moral will explicitly laid out.
The words don't. It doesn't. The words like sovereign and moral will don't explicitly appear in the Bible.
So
but
where do they implicitly appear?
I just gave you the best example is Jesus on the cross.
No, all you gave was an example of why the Trinity is incoherent nonsense.
I have a question about this. Do you guys distinguish God's will from his goals?
Do we just hold on? What did Alex say real quick?
I said at the end there that what you demonstrated was why the crucifixion is incoherent nonsense. Because if God, why the Trinity becomes nonsensical when you have instances of things like the crucifixion. Because if God and Jesus are the same being and are one and the same, then the death of a fractional part of an infinite being is negligible. It means there's no sacrifice whatsoever, because it means that if Jesus and God are the same being and are of one mind, then it means that Jesus knew he was going to come back to life. So did Jesus know that he'd be resurrected?
Yeah, it says that Jesus was
where's the
crucified
sacrifice?
from the foundations of the world. Well, this was already predestined before God even created the...
Okay, so where's the sacrifice?
Where's the sacrifice?
Yeah,
Jesus was fully... Humanity. Yeah, in humanity. Jesus was fully human. Just as much as he was fully God.
Okay, so do you not see the contradiction? Was he 100% God?
Again, it's not a... It's a seeming...
I'm just asking a question. I just want a yes or no answer.
Yeah.
Was he 100% God?
Our
yes or no, please, David.
Archetypal of God's will.
Yes or no, please,
You're asking
David.
us to give a yes or no answer on something that our finite minds can't fully understand. We can't give you a yes or no answer.
I'm asking you to give me a yes or no answer on a straightforward question.
Or you can be honest and say you don't know.
Well,
no, like our finite minds can't comprehend.
So you don't know.
So
you don't know.
To give you a straight yes or no answer is not possible.
So you don't know the answer.
Like I just told you.
So you don't know the answer.
I gave you my explanation. All
right, going back to the core of God. With your sovereign, moral, whatever your two things were. All right, so do you distinguish God's goals?
Will versus moral will.
Yeah, do you distinguish his goals from his will? Do you see them as... Do you understand their...
distinguish his goals from his will.
Yes, are his goals different than what he wants?
A goal is something that you're striving to achieve.
My goal is to lose weight. My goal is to eat a whole pizza.
God doesn't lack anything. God doesn't lack anything.
Do you understand what I'm saying? My goal is to lose weight.
Why does he need worship?
What was that, Kat?
If God lacks nothing, he needs nothing, he wants nothing, why does he desire worship?
Did you guys catch that?
He doesn't. God doesn't need our worship. He deserves our worship.
He demands our worship.
Well, here's what we're saying. If he didn't have his elect chosen and decided to send all of us to hell, he would still be God. He doesn't need us or isn't lacking us for anything.
So why did he create us then?
In other words, there's nothing we can do to provide him with something that he doesn't.
Colossians, to answer your question about why did he create us, Colossians 1 answers that question. Like it says, for everything was created by him and for him. It was talking about Jesus. Everything was created by Jesus and for Jesus. We were created for his glory.
But why would an omnipotent, omniscient, all-perfect being need anything in the first place? Was
God
not perfect? So why did he create us?
For his glory.
But by definition, if he needed something for his glory before he created us, then he was lacking something, which by definition means he's not perfect.
He does not need us. He just.
Do you understand what the word perfect means?
Yes.
The word perfect means lacking for nothing.
Yes. He does not lack anything.
Let me ask you.
So why did he then change his state? Something that doesn't lack.
He didn't change his state.
But he did.
He's the same yesterday, today, and forever.
Did creation start? Was there a period of time for God before He created?
Creation started.
Oh, you're asking us. Okay. Was there a period of time before what?
Before creation, for God. Did God experience time before He created the earth?
Time is a creation of God.
So was there existence before the creation of the earth?
God, okay.
Was there existence?
You're asking us a question that has to do with time.
Yeah, was there existence?
God is eternal. God is outside of time.
Was there existence before the creation of the earth?
His existence, not ours.
Because God is eternal.
All right, was that a perfect existence?
God is perfect.
Okay, why create us? If He has a problem with sin,
for His glory.
Us. No, He created us to sin. So He could punish us and burn us for eternity. All right, did God want us to sin or not?
Well, He created.
Did He want us to sin?
You're talking about His moral and sovereign will.
Okay. Like this is of course, like a criminal who's in jail is gonna make up stuff to make the justice system seem like they're bad. You're a criminal of the universe, so you're accusing God of all these. Like we're all criminals.
No, I'm asking, do you want us to sin or not?
In what will? Sovereign or moral?
I'm not talking about wills. I'm talking about goals. I'm talking about outcomes. I'm talking about outcomes. I'm not talking about what He wants. Does He want to lose weight, or does He want to eat pizza? Does He want to eat a bucket of fried chicken, or does He want to lose 10 pounds?
Okay, in God's sovereign will,
okay, your wills are irrelevant.
In His moral will, no, He did not.
Does He? Okay, what's His goal? I'm asking about His goal.
Again, in order to have a goal, you have to be lacking something to achieve that goal, and God's not lacking anything.
All right.
So why does God need why does God want to have His kingdom established on earth then? Why does He want to have the whole...
Why does God already has His kingdom?
Oh, so the kingdom of God's already here? So what's judgment all about?
Yeah.
Why did God just create heaven and stop fucking around with the middle part?
It's like, to answer your question about what is judgment all about, because there's people who rebel against God.
But why did God make those people rebel?
God is justice.
So is it just to make somebody do something
those people,
and then punish them for doing it?
Those people freely rebelled on their own accord.
Yeah, you're operating under the assumption that He...
Whoa. You just, let me stop you there. You just said those people freely rebelled, but can anybody do anything freely with God being the arbiter of all power and everything in the universe?
Again, this is another...
Is God in control of everything?
Okay, this is another... Yes
or no, David?
Hold on, this is another paradox.
No, I'm sick of your paradoxes, David. I just want some straight answers from you.
In Christian theism, no, our minds are archetypal of God's mind, so it makes sense that...
Prove it.
The paradox come in when your religion stops making sense. This is why I'm an atheist.
We do not understand how God can be sovereign over everything, and yet still clearly do our own things.
No, I understand. I understand. Based on what you define God as, He wanted us to sin. And then He created a situation where He had to break a piece of Himself off to come down to earth, to sacrifice Himself to Himself for 3 days, after which He becomes God. Now, this is fucking ridiculous.
Okay, first off, I mean, you're not, like, you're the core of that, what you just said, you misunderstand Trinity.
No, the Trinity doesn't make sense. Now, at what point are you guys? At what point is the penny going to drop for you two that your beliefs are nonsensical?
Okay, can I just ask you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I just ask you a question. Like, I think you're kind of operating, like, I think you're taking, when you guys talk about the term of destination, I think you guys are more or less kind of taking it not how we mean it. Like, there isn't, like, when we say people rebelled against Him, like, there is an element of free will to that. So we do, like, in other words, we don't know the outcome, but He already does. So we can still freely make choices.
But if He,
regardless of the plan.
Is the outcome? Go on.
I'm sorry, does He want people to rebel against Him?
In His sovereign will, yeah, yeah.
I'm talking about outcomes. I'm not talking about wills. You're not understanding. God knows everything. Whatever He creates, He already planned it.
You're asking us about something that has to do with His will.
Does He want a world where people burn in hell?
His sovereign will, that's what He created. And His moral will, no.
No, I'm talking about
God
goals.
does not desire anyone to perish.
I'm talking about goals. I'm not talking about what he wants. I'm not.
Again, when you ask a question about goals, you're presupposing that God's lacking something.
I'm asking, does God want something that's logically possible, or does he want something that's a logical possibility? You're essentially saying God wants No, you're saying God wants a logical possibility. He wants to eat a bunch of pizza and lose weight. No exercise. That's what you're saying.
That's not what we're saying at all.
You're
That's exactly what you're saying. Can God have what he wants or not?
We should answer that question.
So it's a yes or no question. Do you disagree? It's a yes or no question.
Depending on which will of his you're talking about.
No,
yes.
I'm not talking about does God will us to sin or not. I'm saying does his goal for us to sin or not.
You're asking us the question. You're asking us a question about God's sovereignty and expecting us to give you an answer like in a 30-second soundbite.
Does God know the outcomes of all things?
There's a volume dedicated to this subject alone.
We don't need a whole volume. Does God know the outcome of all things?
It's not that simple. That's what I'm explaining
yes,
to you.
It's simple if you have an all-powerful God.
Our minds are archetypal of God's mind.
If
so we cannot comprehend the in God.
Well,
if you have an all-powerful God,
comprehend.
Let me ask you. I'm assuming that you two. I think this obviously wouldn't solve it for today, but I'm assuming you two would know how to use Amazon to order stuff off Amazon. I suggest to get a better answer.
We're getting off the point.
I suggest to get a better.
I'm asking.
No, listen to me.
You're not answering any of my questions. Okay, go ahead.
We answered all your questions.
I'm going to. I just want to listen.
Is your God all-powerful?
Hold on for a second. I just want to ask you. I'm going to answer that question in a second. Just to get a better understanding after this is over, I highly suggest you two look at a book called Putting Amazing Back into Grace by Michael Horton, because he explains stuff like this a lot better than we can.
Okay. Is your God all-powerful?
Yes.
Does he know all things?
Well, hold on. First off, define all-powerful.
All possible power.
All possible to do anything you want.
Yeah, you can't make a rock you can't lift. I'm not going to waste my time with that.
Okay, then yeah.
All right. Does he know all things?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Did he create the universe knowing how it would end?
Yeah.
Yeah, he did.
All right. Did he want people to sin in this universe?
Yes and no.
Did he want people to sin in this? Well, if he creates it, he knows what it's going to do. It's like me.
Well, we're giving you the best answer we can.
But doesn't that tell you something? If the best answer you can give us is nonsensical, doesn't that tell you something about your source of knowledge?
Of course, since our minds are archetypal of his mind,
prove it.
There's goals that we cannot fully comprehend. We can apprehend them, but we can't comprehend them because our minds are finite while his mind is infinite.
What's that?
So can we talk about something you can comprehend then?
We can talk about anything you guys want to.
All right, let's move on. I comprehend it. What the truth is, if your God is what you say is, he's an evil monster who created a situation where most people are going to burn in hell.
Okay, but I want
let me ask you a question, because you just made a statement here.
You just strawmanned us.
God
punishes people who rebelled against him.
And also, if you're going to define... Well, you and David sort of went into this. You said he's an evil monster. What's your definition of an evil monster? I mean, by objective standards, what's your definition?
Someone who tortured someone for eternity is an evil monster. Hitler wasn't even that bad.
You know what? Let me ask you, putting someone on death row is an evil thing to do too. But guess what? There's laws people have to follow.
Yeah, it's not as bad as eternity.
Would you?
Yeah, but if we rebelled again, according to Christian theism, we rebelled and broke God's law. Therefore, we deserve hell.
He created you to rebel. That's the problem.
No one will be in hell that does not want to be there, or who does not deserve to be in hell.
Everybody
actually pretty much. You know what? But they wanted to rebel while they were here.
And they're actually still rebelling.
It's because God created them that way.
Again, we're going to get into what will you're talking about as to what he wanted us to do.
No, the will thing's nonsense. I'm talking about outcomes.
And also, God did predestine that, but at the same time, they willfully did on their own accord.
Well, from his perspective, there's no will. From your perspective, there's will. But anyway, we can move on to another issue if you guys want.
A cat was wanting to make a point. What was the point you wanted to make?
I just wanted to go back briefly to morals, because you were talking about how there is an absolute moral authority, which is God, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
God's nature.
Okay, so I assume that you take the Bible to be literally true and everything within it being God's word to basically be a transcript of what he wants, yes?
There's different genres of the Bible. So
okay, what do you take to be authoritative?
Based on which genre you're talking about, we take it literally based on the genre of based on the different genres of the Bible.
You're going to have to define how a genre of a Bible is different than any other Bible for me.
Well, like there's historical narrative, there's apocalyptic, there's the Psalms, there's wisdom literature in the Bible. Like there's all different kinds.
So I'm just talking about basic commandments. We can go straight back to basic commandments. You believe that? Do you take a particular translation to be fairly authoritative, or are all of them authoritative?
The ESV. I trust the ESV is the closest to the original Greek and Hebrew, but like all the Bibles are pretty much good though.
Yeah, and that's kind of like David usually reads the ESV. I'm a little bit different. I usually read the New American Standard, but it's still saying the same thing.
It's basically arbitrary, that bit. Okay, so you believe that morals are sort of absolute, and your morals are given to you by God, and some of the basic ground rules, let me speak English this time, are laid out in the Bible, yeah? Basically, just basics. Okay, so if your morals are not subjective,
I agree with that.
So you don't think your morals are subjective, they're objective passed down by God, yeah? So what you think is moral...
I would say everybody's morals are objective.
Objective or subjective?
What?
Objective
I would say everybody's
subjective?
morals are objective.
Okay.
Objective.
Yes.
So you have no input on whether or not something's moral or not. You can't decide if something's right or wrong, because that's subjective.
God is morality, so whatever goes against him.
Okay. So the Bible condones and lays out the rules for slavery. In the modern world, we believe slavery to be incorrect.
You're taking that out of context.
Jesus gives the rules for how to treat another human being that you own. How is that not slavery?
You're presupposing that slavery back then was the same kind of slavery
as... here we go.
Dude, this is so funny.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Are any of you guys familiar with the term called indentured servitude?
Oh, for fuck's sake!
Are you guys aware of a guy called the Are you guys aware of a guy called the non-stamp collector? Because I watched his video yesterday explaining this, and it might be the best possible definition I've ever had, like, to explain this thing. But you guys can go ahead and explain.
Okay, but
I've never heard of him.
Well, you should go look up.
Well, here, look at it. If you were to look at, if you were to look at like when people say the Bible condones slavery as to how slavery was for the blacks, they weren't out picking fields like cotton and stuff like that, or sweatshops or anything like that. Like if you look at the Bible, these people were provided houses, they were provided means of living, they were provided food. So in other words, you work for me. It's like even
last
today.
Time I checked, the cotton plantations fed their slaves because dead slaves.
Well,
back then the way the slavery was if like a Jew was to go into debt to like a Gentile, they would automatically they'd have to go into slavery to that Gentile, but that would be dishonoring to the Jew and to his family. He wouldn't want that because Jews looked at Gentiles like they were inferior people, so instead they would sell themselves into slavery to a richer family member that's still a Jew, work off that debt, and then they'll be free.
How would they?
How about the other way around?
A more equivalent explanation of slavery back then would be like a job today, like an employee-employer relationship.
No. Okay, so forgetting the Jew-on-Jew slavery, which sounds far dirtier than it probably was. Jew-on-Jew. the Bible.
If you heard the last debate between these two, you wouldn't think that sounded bad. Trust me.
Did it get quite rude? The Bible does discuss how to treat your slaves, and it talks about not taking Jewish slaves. So it talks about enslaving Gentiles. So if it's a case of being an indentured servant, Jew on Jew, fine. But that doesn't seem to apply if you're talking about a Gentile who's supposedly inferior.
So but how were they treated?
Well, if you look at the society back then, like you have to consider when you read stuff like that. Like if you were reading a book from Shakespeare or anybody else just like that, you have to consider what the social norms were back then. You know what I'm saying?
But that's like the whole point. Like now. What's the social norms now versus back then is an example of the subjectiveness of morality.
Absolutely.
What was considered okay back then changes. Yeah. So, but forgetting slavery, how about rape? How are you with rape?
Well, it was considered as a societal norm. That doesn't mean that it's okay. It was just considered as a societal norm.
It's condoned in the Bible. It's written in how to treat people. It shows God demanding it's not the same kind of slavery that you're thinking of.
Yes,
but I'm talking about rape now. We're past slavery. We're straight to rape now.
According to an atheistic perspective or worldview, what's wrong with slavery and what's wrong with rape? No. According to an atheistic worldview that says morality is subjective, there's no objective standard for good.
I'm not asking about that. For all you know, I could think.
No, I'm asking you.
But I'm asking you to just. You're the one who's saying it's absolutely objective, comes from God, unchanging moral law. Yeah. Because if it changed.
Like here's the thing, according to my worldview, I can justify why that stuff is wrong, why the slavery of the 1800s was wrong. Like according to an atheistic worldview, you cannot justify why that stuff's wrong.
David, if God told you that slavery was all right, would you think it was okay?
God wouldn't say when it comes.
No, I'm just saying it hypothetical. Nature. If God told you that slavery was acceptable and that you were to take slaves, would you, and that it was morally good, would you accept that it was morally good?
Yeah, you're asking me a hypothetical that's not possible at all.
Okay, well, how about he says that he's not down with you wearing polyester and cotton at the same time?
Okay, you guys are asking us to defend this from a different worldview than we take. That's like asking. That's like asking a Christian, can you defend Allah? We can't because it's not our worldview.
So do you disagree that you should mix? Do you think it's fine to mix fabrics?
I'm pretty sure I can see mixed fabrics.
Now you're talking about Levitical law.
Yes.
Which was only directed towards a certain group of people. It wasn't directed towards the Gentiles.
Why was it not? Why? But didn't Jesus say that he wasn't removing the law?
Okay, according to Christian theism, Israel was the world rape miniature. And Israel was. Like God chose Israel for a set time to teach them, and through Israel He taught us about ourselves. Israel represented us. So everything in the Levitical law, everything in the entire Old Testament was a type and shadow of things to come in the New Testament.
Then he's failed, hasn't he?
Everything pointed to Jesus. Like the Levitical law, for instance, says you cannot mix two different kinds of camel hair together because that represents that God's holy and we're not holy. So you have to read Leviticus in that mindset.
So if a girl is on her period and she sits on a chair and you're not allowed to sit after her, like how does that work?
Again, like I said, everything in the Levitical law points it was for teaching purposes to show Israel who they were.
Does sacrificing can I ask a question? Does sacrificing an animal cure leprosy?
That's not.
Again, that was a type and shadow pointing to Jesus.
Yeah, right. How do you know this?
Well, even if you consider the story of Adam in the fall of the Garden of Eden, that was also a preview of things to come. You know,
you mean where you know what I'm saying? Where God set Adam and Eve up? You mean where He placed them?
No, they made
willfully made that choice.
Yeah, they there is an element.
This is a question I want to ask you. How did they know what they were doing was wrong?
Because God told them.
No.
God
told
them,
is,
do not eat this fruit.
And what was the tree called?
The tree of knowledge of good and evil.
Let me ask you a question.
No, I won't let you ask a question. I want you to finish answering my question. So the tree was called the knowledge of good and evil. Yeah. So does that not indicate that before they ate of it, they did not possess knowledge of good and evil? So how did they know?
Because there was no evil.
Wrong?
Yeah.
So how did they know that what God told them to do would be wrong?
Adam.
How did they know?
There was nothing in Adam that predisposed him to sin.
So,
Adam's sin was he sought to go against God. He was essentially the first atheist.
You're not listening to what I'm saying. You're not listening to what I'm saying or the words that I'm using. I'm asking you a direct question. Without having knowledge of good and evil, how did Adam or Eve know that what they were going to do was wrong?
There was no wrong.
When you were being raised,
so they
by
weren't
your
doing
parents,
anything
did
wrong.
Your parents give you rules.
No, but
when you were raised by your parents.
But I had knowledge of good and evil. They were lacking.
When you were being raised by your parents. When you were being raised by your parents, did your parents give you rules to follow?
Yes, but I already had a knowledge of good and evil.
According
because
to the
they
Bible,
told me.
he has the knowledge.
How'd you know that?
You
know what the consequences were going to be.
But they didn't know what it meant. If he said it's wrong and you will do something wrong, they had no knowledge of good and evil, so they.
The first time you disobeyed.
Is it wrong to disobey?
The first
God?
time you.
Is it wrong to disobey?
The first time any of us. Yes. The first time.
How do you know that?
Willfully do that. Though.
How do you?
Our parents. The first time. Hold on for a second. The first time that all of us have disobeyed our parents. The first time we disobeyed them, did we have knowledge that it was wrong, or do we go by it off the consequences that happened?
You start being taught what's right and wrong before you even got language skills.
But did you know what
the model of it?
Did you know what the consequences?
If they told me what the consequences are, yeah. I mean, if they didn't tell me what the consequences were,
they said that we know right and wrong before we're taught right and wrong.
I say that we start to learn it while we're still pre-language.
How do we start to learn it? According to your worldview.
Copying behaviors, exactly like everybody else.
I could copy Charles Manson's behaviors. Would that make it right or wrong if I was raised in an environment? If I copied Charles Manson's.
Okay. So if there was a society, a hypothetical society that said that murdering people was right. According to your own logic, that murder would be right for that society.
No, according to your straw man version of my logic, that would be right. But I want to cut
exactly what you just said.
I want to cut right through this. I want you to tell me how you know God exists.
There we go.
How do you know that God exists?
Well, because without him, you can't know anything.
That's not true.
We'll take a Psi 10 approach. We'll take a Psi 10 approach and say because without him, you can't know anything.
And prove that.
It's not really Psi 10.
Prove that you can't know anything without God.
I can prove I know something without God.
Romans chapter 1, verse 18.
Is there any tangible evidence outside of your personal experience that gives you evidence of God?
Oh, first off, ma'am, I'd like to address you by name, if that's okay. So, what is your name? I want to ask you a question, but I want to be respectful.
Yep, it's cat, like the animal. Cat.
Okay, now let me ask you a question.
His girlfriend's name is Cat.
Well, apparently that's the only thing
so you said Do you know? Okay, you said that you know things about God, right?
I said that I can know that I know something without having to have God. That I know things for certain.
How do you know that? How do you know that?
Because it's an axiom truth.
Like, in your worldview, how can you have any certainty at all?
Okay.
First off, you don't know my worldview. You know my husband's an atheist, and you know that your other colleague here on this video cast is an atheist. You don't know my background.
By the arguments you're presenting,
No, I'm.
Like, well, are you an atheist?
Can you know that you're thinking? Can you know you are thinking?
Yes, but we also have a worldview that justifies how we can know things.
Okay, so without your worldview, would you not be able to know that you were thinking?
You wouldn't be able to know anything.
Everybody has a worldview. If you don't have a worldview, you don't exist.
Okay, from my worldview then, you pretend for a second you're an atheist. Or an agnostic, or a Buddhist, again. Did you know you were thinking? Can you know you're thinking without...
From an atheistic worldview, like I could... Okay, from an atheistic worldview, I wouldn't be able to trust my own thoughts.
But you'd know you were having them, is that correct?
I wouldn't be able to trust them.
But that was a yes or no question. Would you know that whether you could trust them or not, if they were fantasy or whatever, would you know you were thinking?
Some kind of chemical, like according to an atheistic worldview,
like
I would know
I'm just asking you yes or no.
Whether or not
you're but the thing is, you keep saying that we can't really talk about your worldview from inside your head, but you think that you can talk about ours.
You just asked me to pretend
all I'm asking is whether or not you could trust them. I'm not asking about truth in this case, or how you define truth. I'm just asking you, would you know that you were thinking? Whether or not you were imagining what you were thinking, would you know you were thinking? Would you be able to go, I'm thinking?
I would have to say not in the same way, that our worldview would say. To be honest with you, I'll go out on a limb here. No, you can't know anything for certain without objective knowledge.
So you can think that you cannot think. Is that what you just said?
What I'm saying is our worldview justifies how we can know things.
But you just said you could think that you cannot think. That's exactly what you're saying. That's why we call them axioms. They're axiomatic. And you would also know your thoughts being the thought that you can think that you cannot think. You can know your thoughts and you can know your existence. These things are
how
axiomatic.
Do you know? How do you know that?
Can I jump in and lay some stuff out for you here? And it's going to take me a couple of minutes to go through this, so I'll just beg your indulgence while I do this. I can know certain things for certain, and I know that I am thinking. And I know that with absolute perfect certainty, and I know it because of the impossibility of the contrary. If I were not thinking, I would not be able to even consider the thought of whether I was thinking or not. Now, this then leads me to be able to realize that I exist. Now, once I realize that I exist, I realize that there must be an existence for me to exist in. Now, the next stage of that is you then have to work out, is my consciousness or existence itself the first thing that's important there? Which of them attains over the other?
So now, if I'm not mistaken, you're using Rene Descartes' I think, therefore I am.
No, I'm not. You're not letting me finish. Now, the thing is...
No, technically he's using the other way around. I am, therefore I think.
Yeah, because I would not be able to think if I did not first exist. Now, it wouldn't matter, though, because that leads me to the objectivist view of the primacy of existence, which means that for anything to be able to do anything at all, it must first exist. Now, you cannot deny the primacy of existence, because anything you say will merely confirm the primacy of existence. Now, once you've realized that the primacy of existence is axiomatically true and is an undeniable truth, at that point you can then start to say, well, the reality I am experiencing through my senses is real because it must exist for me to be able to experience it, and then you can start to measure it and start to build knowledge, which allows us to gain knowledge about the world around us. We don't need to appeal to any gods at all. All we need to do is recognize the correct relationship between that which we observe and the observer.
Well,
okay, let me ask you this. I agree with you that existence is an axiomatic necessity, but here's the thing. My worldview can account for existence. Your worldview cannot even begin to account for existence.
Yes, it can.
You can't even know if you even exist.
You just agreed to that. You just agreed to that.
The question I want to
ask how do you account for existence? That's what I'm saying, according to your worldview.
And I have a question.
Existence exists. It's an axiomatic principle. It's a self-evident truth.
Alex,
existence exists.
Alex,
it's a self-evident truth. It's an axiom.
In that.
Alex, I have a question to respond to what you just asked.
Okay.
What you just said. You just said you can have absolute certainty that you know that you're thinking. Am I correct?
Yes.
Do you have absolute certainty of any, do you have absolute knowledge?
I don't have to know that.
Yes, you do, because if you don't have absolute knowledge, you can't know that everything, in other words...
Are you saying that there may be something that would contradict that I'm thinking?
Yes. Yes.
Are you denying thought to defend your worldview?
From your worldview, I would say that if you
Are you?
Yes, from your worldview...
You deny the ability to think...
What I'm denying
you are giving up reason to defend. Let me finish. Are you giving up reason to defend your worldview? Yes or no?
No. No, what I'm saying is without absolute knowledge, there are variables that can change the absolute knowledge that you think you have.
The primacy of existence would still hold.
Hold on.
Still mean that we can get something from the other
side. Wait. Hold on. I want to ask you one question.
You cannot account for existence. You said existence exists. That's circular. But my question to you...
Wait, I want to ask Joe a question real quick.
Go ahead.
I want to ask Joe a question. He said, unless you know everything, you can't know anything?
Pretty much.
All right. Do you know everything?
We have a worldview. We have a worldview that gives us an objective.
Yes or no question. Do you know everything?
We know everything that God reveals to us. With
Do you know everything? You can, see, you guys say something.
Me personally,
yes or no?
Me personally, as a human being, no, I don't.
All right, so you don't know God exists. All right, go ahead.
That's not
what we're saying.
That's exactly no. I repeated what you just said, but you're being inconsistent. You are holding us to a different standard than you're holding yourself.
We know everything that God reveals to us.
All right. Well, you're being a hypocrite. You're saying you have to know everything to know anything, and then you're saying I don't know everything, therefore I know something.
Either you know everything, or you know someone who does know everything that can reveal things to you.
Yes.
That you can know them with.
I've just explained
to you that you gave last week about the mother about the marbles, and I had to ask my mother what color marble I have. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
That analogy proved presuppositional.
No, it didn't, because your mother wasn't God.
Okay, but our mother, it took my mother revealing to me what color my marble was in order for me to know what color marble that was.
Do you know? David. But you didn't know if your mother was lying or not, so you don't know if God's lying or not.
God cannot lie.
How do you know? Because He told you it's circular.
Every argument is circular.
No, they're not.
No, it isn't.
Yes, they are.
No, they're not.
What Alex said was circular.
No, it wasn't, because you misunderstood. Let me explain this again to you. The primacy of existence is an axiom. That means it is self-evidently true. It is a foundation for knowledge. It is not a circular point. You start from it, and then you can go up. But it is.
How do you account for that, though? How do you account for that?
Because of the impossibility of the contrary.
And that's what we argue for the existence of God from the impossibility of the contrary.
But I can actually provide you with something that's real. You then added an extra stage of saying, oh well, we need to account for something that's already been accounted for. But I've got a question for you.
You said anything you're trying to prove.
I had this question for you before. You said you don't have absolute knowledge, so I would assume that means you're not omniscient. So is it possible that there's something in what you don't know that could contradict everything that you think you know?
No.
Not at all.
Nothing.
So you have absolute knowledge.
So you have absolute knowledge.
But there are certain things that literally can't. There's nothing that could contradict the fact that I exist.
All right, can I use my marble example again? If you pull in a bag, if you have a bag of marbles, and you pull out one red one, you know one is red. You don't know what the rest are.
Did we have somebody with objective and total absolute knowledge telling us that?
I'm saying you can know some things without knowing everything. You know what you know, and you don't know what you don't.
As human beings, yes, you're right.
All right, so the things you know, you know.
Well, according to we're not asking you about what you know and what you don't know. We're asking you how do you account for what you know.
Primacy of existence. I've already told you.
And how do you account for existence?
Don't have to. It's an axiom.
How do you know that we're not all just, according to your worldview, how do you know that we're not all just someone's dream?
We exist as a dream.
Is it possible that we could be in a matrix?
Yeah, it doesn't exist in a matrix.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter though, because then it would still exist.
The matrix would then exist.
Yeah, but then we're in the matrix.
A perfect thing for you to look at to see when it's struck to its logical conclusion, this argument, is to look at a debate between Eric Hovind and Thunderfoot and see what happens when this worldview is stretched to its logical.
I don't care. I couldn't care less. Eric Hovind's an idiot, and I don't care. I couldn't care less.
Yeah, Thunderfoot said. Thunderfoot.
I don't care about Thunderfoot.
Thunderfoot even himself said that we don't know that we exist in an atheist.
Thunderfoot was wrong.
How can you prove that?
Because I exist.
And how do you know that?
Because of the impossibility of the contrary, we keep going.
How do you know that it's impossible?
Because of the primacy of existence.
Knowledge. How do you know that it's impossible?
Because of the
we're going back to the only thing he could say to justify existence is he says existence exists. And
it's an axiom. That's all. No, it isn't circular. It's an axiom.
All right, guys.
So in other words, does this book exist because it exists, or does it exist because we can prove it exists?
Does it exist? Would it exist without a mind to conceive of it? If you didn't exist, would that book continue to exist?
If I didn't exist, the book could still exist. I could just not be here.
Primacy of existence. It would continue. Existence attains. There you go.
All right, guys. We're talking about knowledge. Aside from God's existence, what else do you know? You claim to know what. You've established one thing. Establish the rest.
We know what God reveals to us with certainty, just like everybody else.
Give me an example.
You don't mind.
We know that God cannot lie. We know God cannot do anything that goes against His nature.
So all you know are about God's attributes. That's your knowledge.
And what He's told you about Himself. Can I ask you a question?
Are you asking us about Christian theism now, or are you asking us what we know outside of this debate?
I'm going to ask you a direct question, and I think this is very important. How do you know that God is omniscient?
Because of revelation. Because of what He's given to us.
And how does God know that He's omniscient?
Because
God is God. God is.
Is it possible?
God knows fully.
Is it possible that something could exist that could mean that God wasn't omniscient, or that He could be mistaken?
He has all knowledge.
But if He's mistaken, He wouldn't know, would He?
He wouldn't be mistaken. He's perfect.
But how? But maybe He's mistaken that He's perfect. How do you know that He isn't?
God is the creator. According to Christian theism, God created
According
everything.
to God.
So God exists because God exists, but I can't exist because I exist.
You can't know that you exist.
Does God know He exists?
A finite creature.
Does God know He exists?
Yes, He's all knowing.
How does God know He exists?
How does the person who made your computer know that computer exists? Because they made it.
So He made Himself.
No, God is eternal.
How do you know that?
Oh, we're saying the same things.
Great mind thinks alike. Fools never differ.
All right, can God know what He doesn't know?
There's nothing that He doesn't know.
But if God didn't know something, would He know it?
That's a asinine question.
If God didn't know something, would He know it?
Well, God knows everything. There's nothing He does not know.
If God didn't know something, would He know it?
If you didn't know something, would you know it?
No.
But
you wouldn't know that you didn't know something.
Yep.
So God could or could not know everything. There's no way to test it.
If you didn't know that you didn't know that you didn't know something, how do you know that you don't know it?
That's exactly the point. You just made the exact same point he was making.
You're asking us from a finite human standpoint. Humans cannot know everything. But what we're saying is if you have revelation and I'm not talking about audible voices, so please don't make me like a
How do you know you've had revelation?
What?
How do you know you've had revelation?
We have special revelation and general revelation.
How do you know you've had revelation?
God's word.
Can you see how circular that is?
I see how your existence, we know we exist because we exist, is circular.
That's an axiom. If you understood axiom, then you would understand that is an axiom.
Circular. You can't.
No, it isn't. An axiom is not a circular by definition. An axiom
your argument is circular.
No, you didn't expose shit.
Existence exists. That's a circular argument.
No, it's an axiomatic fact.
You're starting with the presupposition that exists and basing...
Do you deny that existence exists? Do you deny that existence exists?
We can account for existence.
But you can't account for shit.
You can't account for existence.
You can't account for anything. I'm sorry. You've accounted for precisely nothing in the last 2 hours.
Actually, you have.
No, you haven't. You think you have, which shows how delusional you are.
You didn't know you even exist.
I've told you how I know exist because of the primacy of existence, which is an axiom.
You said I know.
You're using a circular argument.
No, I'm not. I'm using an axiom.
You said I exist because I know. You said I exist because I know I exist. That's
Could I know I don't exist?
Could you know you don't exist?
Yes.
As a human.
Yeah.
No, because you wouldn't exist.
Okay. Do you understand why?
God is not a human.
No. I'm talking about my own existence. Could I know I don't exist?
Okay.
No. How do you account for your existence?
I'm accounting for it right now, but you're not listening.
That's what we're asking.
Farley, let me ask you a question, and please by any means, none of you take this as a threat because it's not. But if I kill Please don't. Don't take me out of context, please. If I killed one of you tomorrow, would you know that you were dead? That's essentially what you're asking.
I wouldn't know anything. No, that's not exact. That's not what I'm asking at all. I'm saying my existence is axiomatic. You are arguing that it's not axiomatic, and then
How do you know that your existence is axiomatic?
I've told you several times, but it's going right over your head. Could I know I don't exist?
No, you're using a circuit. You're saying existence exists.
I'm asking.
Okay, can I rephrase that? If I didn't exist, would I know it?
No, because you won't exist.
If I did
exist, about not existing.
That'd be like saying, if I killed you, would you know that you were dead? No, because you wouldn't have a conscience to know that you were dead.
Wait, so there's no afterlife?
According to your worldview, we're
how?
Your worldview.
You guys asked us to. You guys asked us to step out of Christian theism and approach it from
guys.
You guys asked us to step out of Christian theism and talk from your worldview. That's what we're doing.
So have you given up your theism to defend your theism?
No, we're not. We're forcing you to account for existence, which you have failed to do.
Which you've done
to do. You keep on saying existence exists.
Which is
I know I exist because I exist.
No, I know I exist because I'm able to think about my existence and the
Yes,
fact
David.
that
Okay, but the only way you know that you're thinking is because you exist. So that's a circular argument.
No, because I understand the primacy of existence. I understand that existence comes before everything else.
You exist. How do you know that you exist? Because you're thinking.
And
no,
that's a circular argument.
Because I can then.
Let's just say that you could prove that you were thinking. Let's just say you could prove that.
Which I have.
I have.
How do you know your reasoning and that thought process is valid? You're reasoning that your reasoning is valid too.
No, I'm not.
Well, then what are you doing? By saying I exist because I exist.
Okay, reason and reasoning are two separate words.
What?
What?
Yes, you are saying reasoning, that your reason is valid. One is a process. I'm not reasoning that reason is valid. Your
reasoning is valid. We had this discussion last week.
Guys.
Okay, if you and me looked at the same exact evidence, and based on our two different worldviews, we came to two different conclusions. Like, why would you say that your reasoning or your conclusion is more valid than my reasoning, even though we've just looked at the same exact evidence? The only way you could do that is if you reason that your own reasoning is more valid than my reasoning.
Because mine can be tested.
You start to get consensus.
Because I can test
the majority decides who's right.
I can test my reasoning versus reality. You can't. You have no tangible evidence of your God outside of your own head. The only evidence you provided for your God is in your own head.
Reality.
What?
Your worldview does not comport with reality because you can't even account for something as simple as existence.
But we did!
You have not. You said I know I exist because I'm thinking, and I know I'm thinking because I exist. That's circular arguments.
Can non-existence exist?
No, it's by definition not.
All right, that's why I don't have to account for it. We know we have existence, David. We have no reason to think there was ever non-existence.
So let me get on the page with you. Are you asking if you can prove a negative?
It hurts too much. I'm gonna go have an abortion now.
Okay. No.
Are you coming from the viewpoint that you can prove a negative?
No, I'm not.
Or that you can't prove a negative?
So you said we can't prove a negative.
No.
You're saying we can't prove a negative.
Can I ask you a question here? I want to jump in.
We're waiting for an answer to this question. Can you or can you not prove a negative?
You can prove a positive that then indicates a negative.
But you can prove that something doesn't exist by proving.
There's something else that then the opposite of that thing exists.
Okay, that's a good evasive way to escape my question. No, I'm asking straight up, flat out. Can you, yes or no? Can you prove a negative?
I don't believe you can prove a negative.
You don't. Okay, what about you, Fareed?
I don't think so.
You don't think you can prove a negative?
I haven't thought about it too much, to be honest. So.
Okay.
I'm gonna tread lightly on this question.
Okay.
All right. I can respect that.
I want to ask a question of you guys, because you keep on saying that my reasoning for knowing that reality is real is circular, but you don't seem to understand that the part of that the way that the knowledge is reached is that once you've realised that existence exists and that you exist, you then acknowledge the primacy of existence, which is that existence must always come first. You then use the theory of concepts to integrate the way that you interact with reality and the way you interact between the objects you experience and the way you model those in your mind and the way that you interact with those.
You can't gain knowledge. For how you even know that we exist.
I haven't.
We're starting with square one. How do you know that you exist?
Because of the impossibility of the contrary.
Well, how can you even prove that existence exists? Like, you're starting with the presupposition that...
Can existence not exist?
The possibility of the contrary, same thing.
Yeah.
So you're saying it's impossible for you to not exist?
No, I'm saying it's impossible for existence to not exist.
And how do you know that?
Because of the impossibility of the contrary.
How do you know that it's impossible?
Because of the impossibility of the contrary.
Can't exist.
Well, by definition, it can't, but...
That's why
Do you understand this, guys, or is this a bit too...
You're pretty much essentially saying existence exists.
Yes,
obviously.
That's essentially what you're saying.
That's where we start.
And that's circular.
No,
that's circular.
Do you disagree with that?
No, I'm saying that's a circular argument.
But it isn't, though.
So what? So are you conceding that it's circular?
I'm not.
You said what? So you're admitting that you're using a circular argument.
No, I'm not.
It's a definitional claim.
It's an axiom. It is a self-evident truth.
How is it self-evident?
Because if it wasn't, it exists. Well, tell me, how can something exist that would contradict it?
No, I'm just asking you. I'm just asking you how is it self-evident? You can't answer my question with the question.
Yes, I can.
How is it self-evident?
How is it self-evident?
Yeah.
Because of the impossibility of the contrary.
How is your God self-evident?
Essentially, you're pretty much just saying existence exists.
Yes.
Essentially what you're saying. So that's circular.
No, it isn't.
Do you not see the circularity?
All right. No. How do you know your God exists?
How do I know? Because he's revealed himself.
How do you know?
Because he's revealed himself through general and special revelation.
How do you know?
Because he's revealed to himself through general and special revelation.
Yeah, I heard you say that.
Do you know what I mean by general and special revelation?
Special, the Bible; general, his creation. So tell me how you know that that's actually been a revelation.
His word.
How do you know it was his word?
How do I know it's his word?
Yeah.
Because I'm a Christian. Like according to Christian theism, there's only one God.
What about Satan? Could Satan have tricked you?
No, because...
Could Satan have created the world and God runs it?
No.
How do you know that?
That would contradict his word, and God cannot lie.
How do you know you're not talking to Satan?
God cannot lie.
Can Satan fool you?
No, because Satan is the father of all lies.
Can Satan fool you?
No, Satan cannot fool you.
Satan can't fool you.
Let me ask you a question.
I'm one of the elect.
Could a being of sufficient power fool you into thinking it was God? Yes
or
no?
No.
How do you know that?
Because I'm a Christian.
But how do you know that being that you worship isn't the
God's
being
elect? God says in His Word that He will not lose any of His elect.
But if that God's an evil God, if that's not...
that Satan cannot fool me.
But if that Bible has been written by the trickster God, how can you trust it?
Because God cannot lie.
But that's what
lied about that.
I'm telling you.
What?
What if God lied about not being able to lie?
He cannot lie.
What if he lied about that?
He cannot lie.
How do you know that?
Because okay, now we're going to get into...
Do you know the mind of God?
Through Revelation, yes.
Yeah, through Revelation.
If God lied to you, what do you know?
This goes back to the beginning where we were talking about. We have the mind of Christ.
If God lied to you, what do you know?
He cannot lie.
If he lied to you, what do you know?
That's like asking me if I flew to the moon right now. Like that's you're asking us a hypothetical question that's not logically possible.
You just trust God. You have no way to verify what he's saying.
Through Revelation.
But you're trusting that revelation blindly.
God has infinite knowledge.
That's what he says. Maybe he's a liar.
How does he know that?
Because knowledge comes from him.
How does God know that though?
Because he's the one that created everything.
He only thinks he is.
Okay, the person who created my MacBook knows everything about my MacBook because he created my MacBook.
The person who created your MacBook was actually a woman in China who doesn't know anything about it.
What?
The woman who made your MacBook is actually a person in China who has no idea how it works.
They made it.
Okay.
So? I could put my car back together. It doesn't mean I know how it works.
Knows about the MacBook because
Steve Jobs is dead, dude.
Okay,
Okay,
let
he
me
knew
if the news hasn't filtered over there, but
let me ask you a question. Do you have a car?
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, does the company who made your car, who designed your car, know about your car?
The company's not a person.
You get
That's not what he's asking you. He's asking
That's what he asked.
do the people that made the car.
The company may not be a person, but did people make your car?
The
There will be-
designer.
Well, according to
almost-
their worldview, it just came into being like 10,000
I
years
can
ago.
I can almost
From a-
guarantee
from
that there will not
explosion.
be a single person in that organisation who knows entirely how the vehicle works. There will be experts within separate fields who work together who know how it works.
Okay,
there
but
will
they
not be
know
any-
how they know about the car.
Okay.
Because they created the car.
Okay, but how do you know that God created anything?
We just told you.
But you
It's like
can't.
having a car then, a guy just claiming he's made it.
You have no way to verify God's words. That's what we're trying to get at. You're trusting God. You have no way to know it's actually true.
Do you accept that?
But
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh.
Do you
Like we
accept
broke-
that you can? Do you
we broke
accept
up.
that?
God cannot lie.
But you only know that because he's telling you that,
We know that through general and special revelation.
which could be a lie.
God could. Your soul might be real, and God could
No.
be some super
No, it
soul
can't,
monster
because
who
God
wants to
cannot
eat
lie.
it.
That's logically impossible. Okay, we are at what you're doing is you're redefining God. We're telling you based on Christian theism, God does not change.
We know what your definition is, but you haven't
hang on a second.
justified it.
Wait, he just said that God doesn't change, but before you said that God needs things and God requires things and God can.
I never said that. You said that. I said God does not lack anything. God doesn't need anything at all.
So why did he create us then? Oh, we seem to have lost them.
For his glory.
But why does he need to have anything glorify anything?
Why is glory
okay,
good?
let me.
I said he created us for his glory.
Why is that good? Why is that necessary?
Okay, let me ask you a question, Alex. Okay, I'm gonna get that in a second. But Alex, let me ask you a question. Did you need a wife? Did you need a companion?
Because
Why do you have them?
I met somebody who I fell in love with.
But did you need that, or was that something that you opted to have?
No, it just happened. I neither needed it nor didn't need it. It just happened.
So okay, so would you have been you without your wife?
Yeah.
Okay then.
I would have been a different version of me, because the
But you
experiences
still-
I've had in the last 5 years have been shared with my wife.
Yeah.
But would you still be you without your wife?
I'd be a different version of me without my wife, but I would still
But
be.
you would still be you though.
I would be a different version of me, but I would
It's
still
like
be.
that-
You didn't have to. You didn't
You
have
didn't
to.
need. He's saying you did not need your wife, though. There was nothing in you that you weren't lacking anything that caused you to say, "I need my wife."
Well, I won't. But then also, I'm not making the claim that I'm perfect, so I don't see what point you're trying to make.
No, the thing is, you're saying that you don't need your wife. We're saying God did not need us. He's not lacking anything.
He claims to be perfect. I don't.
No, if it's possible that you don't need your wife and you're a finite creature, why is it so hard for you to understand that God does not need us? He wasn't lacking us, and He's infinite.
And the reason why I take this, I'm not speaking in an analogy. The reason why I'm taking this is because His believers are described as His bride. So that's why I'm comparing it to your marriage.
So he got bored.
God set apart His elect to be the bride of Christ.
Well, on that bombshell, I'm going to have to bow out because it's quite late for me now. But I'll leave you guys to it, and I'll catch up with the rest of this later. Thank you ever so much.
It was
for your
nice
time.
meeting you, Alex.
Thanks for staying up with
Hey,
the
Alex.
I look forward to seeing where this
Hey,
goes.
Alex,
Go on.
just so you know, Alex, it was nice meeting you, and I'll probably wind up
Likewise.
subscribing to YouTube.
I'm already subscribed to you.
I have to say that speaking to you two guys, even though it gets a little bit kind of like to and fro at a time, it's nice to talk to people who are willing to discuss these things because a lot of theists just aren't.
Yeah.
So,
We'll be
kudos
willing to
you.
do this again if you guys are.
Yeah, and we do appreciate that most conversations like this. I know FX or Farid and David discussed this, but we do appreciate the civil conversation because a lot of discussions like this can get pretty bad.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'll leave you guys to it.
Comments that this is going to generate.
I'll catch you guys later, and I look forward to seeing where this goes when I watch the rest of it. Okay, bye, guys.
All right, you have a great night.
Yeah, you
Cheers, guys.
Goodbye.
Oh. Yes, I think at this point it'd be all right for me to step out.
All right.
All right.
Hey, just so you know, since he left, it's just going to be you and David now because I don't want to be unfair, but I will watch the rest of it. So.
That won't be unfair, but it's up to you.
It's 2-on-1.
So, I can handle you guys.
As long as we don't have to talk about how God does himself again, we'll be okay.
Right?
1 + 1 + 1 = 3.
So I'll probably talk for a little bit longer, but I'm probably going to bow out pretty soon. So do you have any other issues you wanted to clear up before I get off of here?
I really can't think of anything right now. Do you want to continue to talk about the morality thing? I think we kind of beat that into the ground.
Right. Yeah, I think we're good. So
yeah, we are.
Yeah, it's good talking to you guys. Nice to meet you.
Until next time.
Cool.
Hey, I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
When are you going to be posting this on your channel? Because I do want to look at it and see if I made any arguments where I can improve at and stuff like that.
This is going to post on the Fsx23 channel right up. It normally takes maybe half an hour before you can watch it. And then I normally I have to cut up my videos on my FSX channel for a little longer, a couple more months. So I'm going to break it up in little segments.
Oh, and real quick, so in order for me to post this on my channel, I just do it the same way, right? Just go on Firefox and
just get his permission first.
Yeah.
Oh,
just the same way you did last time. Okay.
All right, I could do that.
All right.
All right, until next time. Let me know if you want to do this again.
All right. It's fun talking to you guys.
Have a good day, because it's still daylight.
Exactly. All right, guys.
All right.
Take it
See ya.
Later, man.